So we're ready to start doing our layout for our pounce pattern. So we're going to need a few things to get started. First of all, you need the line drawing of your project. You'll need a piece of craft paper, which is just this brown paper. Any heavy paper will do, but we've got craft paper, so that's what we're going to be using. You'll need something to draw with, obviously. And I'm going to use marker and some charcoal just so that it shows up on camera, but you can use pencil, anything that you can easily erase. And you'll also need a square. And then some trammel points. These are trammel points. They are these little things that are basically an adjustable compass for large distances, which we'll be using to lay out some of the circles. So I think I have all of my materials here. So I'm going to start, I've already laid out two sides of this. When I scale this out, I'm just going to go to the inside circle here. This outside circle I'm going to lay out mechanically on my flat directly. I don't need to actually create that as part of the pounce. So I look at this and it says 1 foot 3 inches. So I'm going to make a square that is 1 foot 3 inches. And I know that 12 is a foot and 3 inches is 15. So there's 15. There's 15. So I can square this off. And draw out my pattern. This is the square that my pounce is going to fit within. So 1 quadrant of our circle should fit within this square. Okay? Now I'm going to take my trammel points and I'm going to, so they just unscrew, and you just need a piece of board or anything that you can put on here that's at least the size of your radius of your circle. Doesn't really matter which corner you start at. So I'm going to put the point of the pencil there. I'm going to put the point of this here to get that measurement. I'm going to tighten this up. You want to make sure that these are on the same side of the stick, right? So with this one's on this side, don't put one on this side, one on that side, it screws up the measurement. Double check that measurement. Oh, it has moved a little bit on me. It happens. I'm just going to bring that back, double check, tighten it down again. There we go. All right, so I'm going to draw a quarter of a circle. Hopefully you can sort of at least see that. I've taped down my paper just to keep it from moving around on me too much. Okay, so now I have that circle. And now I can start laying out these other points. So I'm going to start with, I know because I drew this, that these flowers are a 45-degree angle. And because I know geometry, I know that if I draw a line from corner to corner, I will have a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to put that in there. So my flower can live, it's going to split that 45-degree line. Okay. Now I'm just going to measure from center to the bottom of that first petal. Looks like it's about 3 inches. When I measure something like this where I can't hook into my tape measure, if I'm not using a ruler, I like to start on the 1 inch mark. You just have to remember to add an inch. So 3 inches, make a mark. So that's where the bottom of that petal is going to be. And then the top of that thistle leaf flower is at about 1 foot, 1 foot 1. There. Okay, so now I know where the top and the bottom of that little whole flower is. Let's see, the bottom of the flower thing itself is about 6 inches. So let's make a mark there. Okay, and now I'm going to come and measure the width of that little top of the flower. That's about 4.5 inches. And so I know half of 4.5 is 2.25. So I'm going to measure 2.25 inches on either side. I feel like I can probably go from here. So I'm going to kind of just sketch this using charcoal. One thing you'll discover is that when you have to draw arcs like this, if you kind of can use your wrist or your elbow, depending on how big of an arc you're trying to draw, as sort of the point, center point of, you're using your hands kind of as the compass. It'll help you. That means that you need to be able to move around the piece that you're working on. And so I can come like that. Come around here. And because this flower is symmetrical, I could actually only do 1/8 of the circle. But I like the challenge of trying to draw symmetrical things. So I'm going to do it this way. And if I want to be really fussy, I'll measure that distance to the top of that little, to where that little cross is in the middle there, about 10 inches. Measuring everything off of center point. It's a really good habit to get into, to always measure off of a consistent side or point whenever you're doing anything. For this, hopefully it's all going to be right because I've laid it out myself, but sometimes if you're working on a flat, especially a flat that's been built by lab students, not that they don't do a great job, but your flat may not be exactly square. And so if you're always measuring from a consistent side, at least you'll be consistently inconsistent. So this comes in like this and goes over to here, and then same thing over here. I want to make this a little more pronounced there. This is why I like charcoal. Just smudge it out. Okay, so there's that, and then I need my leaves, and actually I think I'm going to draw that outside little arc first. And I actually want you to freehand these arcs because I think it's good practice. Also gives me a sense of how well you sort of see these things. I imagine this will take you a little bit longer than it takes me, because again, I've been doing this a while. I love the way that that looks. If I have a hard time getting this to be symmetrical, like I said, I can do this as an 1/8 of a circle and just fold it in half and transfer it that way, because I'm making a repeatable pattern. So, but, all right, there's that. So now, and to some degree, the amount of precision that I put into a layout like this is entirely dependent on what the final product is going to be. If I were going to do this for, you know, maybe a rose window on a cathedral or something like that, I might want to be a little more precise. But if I wanted to have kind of a little bit of a hand-drawn look, then I might choose to do what I'm doing here, which is a little more eyeball-y. But I'm really paying attention to the proportion of things and where things land. So like the distance here, I now have that distance drawn. So I'm gonna try and repeat that distance over here. And I'm looking at how this line looks in reference to the center line, and where that point is in relationship to that point. And anytime I have a straight line, I'm not going to try and draw a straight line without a straight edge. Straight edges are our friends. All right. And so now, all I really need to do is just clean up a few things. Like I look at this and I see this is like one knuckle. This is a little more than a knuckle. So, okay, so there's a knuckle. So that really needs to come out to about there. So a lot of this is just, I want to see what you know, how well you see these patterns, and how well you see, how well you're able to transfer this drawing into this. Okay, now all I really have left is just to put this second border in here. And again, you could, if you wanted to, if you felt more comfortable with it, you could go along and decide how wide that actually needs to be. I didn't scale it out because I'm kind of in a hurry. But you could go ahead and scale that out, or you could, once you have it, you know, started one place, you could just see, well, it's about 3/4 of an inch wide. And you could make yourself a few little registration marks so that you can then connect the dots, if that makes you more comfortable. Okay, but the whole point here is to be able to do this relatively quickly. And so we don't want to spend a lot of time. But we want to spend enough time that we can make it precise. Okay? And I'm pretty happy with that. All right. So now the next step is to actually put some ink on this so that it doesn't get obliterated as I try and do my pounce, and I'll be right back to do that. So I had to step away for a moment to go get my flogger. This is a flogger. It's really just a piece of lumber with a bunch of muslin strips stapled to the end of it. It's meant to get the extra charcoal off of things, or to dust things off. And so I'm just going to kind of tap this lightly on here and get rid of some of that excess charcoal. If I don't do this, I run the risk of the charcoal clogging up my marker. I don't want to go too heavy with this because I can then obliterate my lines entirely, which I'm trying to avoid doing. But this way, I can go ahead now and I can go ahead and ink this back in. If you had laid this out in pencil to start with, you wouldn't necessarily have to do this step. because you wouldn't be worried. But I was worried that as I was going through to actually do my pounce transfer, or to do my pounce wheel, that my hand was gonna erase some of the charcoal, and I didn't want that to happen. So I'm just gonna ink this real quick. Anyway, you get the point. I will come back once this is done. And I'm back. And now it's done. It's inked. So now all I need to do is just create my actual pounce, right? The pattern. So I've got a piece of cardboard. I'm just going to slip this piece of cardboard under here. The cardboard is just there because I have this taped to a piece of masonite because drawing directly onto the plywood was going to be really rough, and I didn't want to have to fight the grain of the plywood. But I need to have something that the pounce wheel can actually kind of have a little bit of give underneath it. The hardboard is just too hard. So these are the two different kinds of pounce wheels. This is actually a pattern wheel. You can see it's got a little bit shorter teeth on it. The teeth are pretty close together. This is the actual pounce wheel. It's got teeth that are a little further apart. They're really longer and sharper. So I'm going to use this one. Either one of these will work, but I prefer the pounce wheel. I only have one of these. I'm going to try and order a couple more, but I've got several of the pattern wheels. So I just take this and very carefully go along and roll that down. Now, this is another one of those things. It takes a little practice, and sometimes you go off the line, and sometimes you get a little wobbly, and that's okay. We're using this to create a pattern, but we can go back and we can clean it up once we've transferred it. So I'm just going to keep going, keep tracing that, right, all the way until I'm done. I'm just going to do a part of this one. And I'm not even going to worry about pouncing this circle because, again, I can lay that out mechanically on my flat. I don't need to worry about it. It's really just there as a reference line. We'll do this way. And then for the straight lines, you can actually use a pounce wheel with a straight edge. I find it easier to pull the pounce wheel towards me. Some people like to do it by pushing it away from them. Either way will work. The whole point is just to poke lots of little holes in the paper. So now I have my pounce, and it has all of its holes. So, and I've only done, like I said, I only did 1/2 of this. So if you wanted to, you could just do that. And then you could either do that and just keep flipping it over, which gets to be a little bit tricky. Or if you just wanted to make sure that your pounce was 100% symmetrical, you could use your pounce to pounce your pounce. So you could fold it on that 45-degree line very carefully. And did I do a very good job? Yeah, I did an okay job getting that folded evenly. And then I could actually just transfer my pounce to the other side of this paper. Now, to transfer your pounce, sometimes you need to take a little bit of sandpaper to this. I think this one's gone through pretty good, but if it's not, you can use a little bit of sandpaper on the back of it just to open those holes up even a little bit more. But to transfer pounce, and this is how you're going to use this to transfer to your flat as well, you can either use what's called a pounce bag, which is one of these, which is basically some cheesecloth with some powdered charcoal in it. There's our powdered charcoal. Or you can just use a piece of charcoal. I actually prefer just using a piece of charcoal. So you just, you can just, and it's not a precision thing, it's kind of scribbly, right? And this should be pushing the charcoal through those little holes. And then I take a rag and just kind of smear it. This just helps push the charcoal through a little bit better. Now, in theory, when I unfold this, I should, and indeed I do, have a pattern of little holes. And now I can see how not symmetrical my original drawing was. I did pretty good, except that this edge of this leaf is actually supposed to be like out there. The rest of it is pretty good, actually. Remarkably so. Remarkably better than I thought it was going to be. So anyway, so I could use this then, draw this out, I could ink it and pounce it using this, or again, I could just say I'm okay with it being a little out and pounce the other side of it. But then I can take this and lay it on my flat. I'll draw this circle out, and we'll talk a little bit in class about cutting registration marks so that you know exactly where it needs to go, so that everything is lined up correctly. And we'll be able then to transfer the drawing and then just keep rotating it around to get our 4 different quadrants of our pounce. So that is all that there is to know about making a pounce and creating that drawing. All right, thank you.